technical difficulties going there. This is why I don't like Windows machines too much. As you can see, the old apples I do have behind myself. But today is Cinco de Mayo. Now, I was looking that up earlier today. Is like, what does Cinco de Mayo mean besides going out and drinking a lot? And it is actually a celebration of a battle between the France and Mexico in the mid 1800s or something. It happened on this day. It was a victory for Mexico at the time. So this is basically just a battle victory that we are still we're still celebrating today. So happy Cinco de Mayo out there, everybody. And today we have John Huber. Did I say that last name right?
Yeah, it's Huber.
Huber, fine, it's Huber.
If I really cared, I would have made sure it was pronounced right before we started.
And he is here from the great north, but we'll get more into that in a little bit here. So, Tom, my name is Wade Stahlberger, or Stallenbacher, or The Wiz, or whatever you want to call me. I don't really care. We are here because basically I think that rising tides raises all ships, and we are to celebrate everyone that is in performance arts or the entertainment area in the Fargo-Moorhead area and surrounding, as such as we have John here today, because he is not from the Fargo-Moorhead area, and I think he's our first one that's actually coming from, I won't say, from a distance. We'll ask him about that, but we really thank him for coming in because I'm really interested and to hear his story and all that, and we're going to show a little bit of one of his latest tracks. Maybe that's the best way to put it. I don't know if you have a full album that's come out yet, or
full album's not out yet, but there's a lot of wheels turning on it. The album's done. We can get into that in a little bit.
Oh, okay.
But the album's done.
But I was on Bandcamp today, and I found a track that we will be showing a little bit of, and then we get to talk to Cito and everyone to see what's actually going on out there this weekend. So, John, how are we doing today?
I'm all right.
How was the trip?
It's a lot of miles, a lot of open prairie. You know what I mean? It's there, then it's not.
Is that why we live here?
Pretty much, yeah. No, I live in Hallock. It's an hour north of Grand Forks.
Hour north of Grand Forks?
Yeah, I live in Stone.
Ooh, I didn't realize you were coming from that far away.
Yeah,
so thank you for being here.
Oh, not a problem, man. It's a stone's throw from Canada. Literally, I live closer to Winnipeg than I do to Grand Forks. You know, so, but I live, it's like 10 miles from the border or something like that. But
wow.
Yep. So you just get used to driving, especially if you grew up in rural North Dakota. So, a lot of people, I'll have friends that'll move for jobs or whatever, what have you, and they'll go nuts the first year here. It's like, well, what do you do? It's like, well, you can't be a boring person and live here, or you're like, the land's not going to provide entertainment for you. Like, you better find something to invest in, and you better be okay driving, because you're going to do that to get anywhere. Like road trips, you have to get used to living up here, So I've never minded driving. So, the 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour drives don't bug me. I'm a podcast guy. I'm a music guy, and I'm a cigar smoker too. So I just light up, put something on the radio, and spend some time with your own thoughts. Maybe that's what people struggle with more than not, is spending so much time with themselves. I think with the long drives, but
interesting.
I live north of Grand Forks, and then the band, I joined Shotgun a year and a half ago, 2 years, something like that. And so we rehearse in Grand Forks. And so, it's to say that, we're the first band or performance person that you've had here from outside of Fargo.
Yeah, way outside. You got everyone beat by a long shot right now.
Well, and I guess what was so strange to me, and one of the things that first I'll say this: my mind's a little like a lazy Susan. It might sound like I'm off on a rabbit trail, but if you just give it a second, but if you give it a second, it'll make sense to the original point. But when it comes to Fargo, the Fargo-Moorhead area and stuff, and where we play and things like that, we had scheduled some shows. We played in Fargo and stuff. But one of the things that was kind of confusing to me when we started booking in Fargo was like we'd get not a resistance, but one of the responses we'd get from people is that's like, wow, we're looking for a local band and you're not local. And I was like, well, Grand Forks is just an hour up the road. They're like, yeah, but you're not local. And I was like, I guess, like I grew up south of Jamestown in the middle of before I start throwing F-bombs and stuff everywhere. Like, swearing a no-go?
Be yourself.
Okay, sure.
It
So, all right,
doesn't
so
matter.
I grew up.
The Uptown Tonight Show.
That's
All
right.
So I grew up in the middle. I got a mouth like a sailor. So like, but I grew up in the middle of fucking nowhere. So like, to me, like all of North Dakota is local.
BFE to those out there.
You know, so like to me, all of North Dakota is local. You know, so that was just my mindset on the whole thing, and we don't mind driving to get to shows. You know, so it's like when they were like, "Well, you're not local," it's like fucking. There's like what 10 bands in the whole state, you know. So like, you better get okay bringing people in from some other places, or you're gonna start lapping yourself pretty quick, you know. So that's changed quite a bit, and we played a lot of good shows in Fargo and stuff too. But we've run into that where people are like, "Wow, you're way up the road." It's like a ways to me is like if it's under 6 hours, like. It's not a big deal. Like, so like we're road dogs, man. So like we like chasing the yellow lines. So it's like, so in addition to everything I do with Shotgun, I also write horror novels and I do solo melodic death metal stuff, and I go to horror conventions to sell that stuff. And so I'll go to Kansas City and Minneapolis and all these places and stuff. So like 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12-hour drives. So in my mind, like if I can make the drive in a day, like that's still a hop and a skip. You know what I mean? So
how long have you been living up there then?
Let's see. We moved in 2014. So I've lived there for 6, 7 years now.
Okay. What made you move up there in the first place?
Well, when I graduated college, my wife and I moved out west. We worked out in the oil fields for a while.
Okay.
And so
I thought about that too.
Yep. It's good money. I'll never complain about what they paid me, you know. But you gotta kind of be built for it. Like, well, one of the things I never understood. Both my parents are from the west part of the state, and growing up, they'd always told me, "Well, there's East River and there's West River," and I never really knew what they were getting at, and until I lived out there. It's still North Dakota, and it's still what you'd expect, but it is slightly different, you know. So it's like it's a little rockier, it's a little hillier, you know. Out here, it's really flat, and so there's a lot of soybeans and corn and stuff out there. It's cattle, you know what I mean. That's what they do out there is cattle and a lot of livestock and stuff. And especially out in the oil fields, you have so many guys coming through from other places looking for work. So when we were out there, it was like the Wild West, and we'd heard stories about.
I've heard lots of stories.
Yep,
Stuff happen out there.
Yeah, and so when we were in college and we were just looking for jobs and stuff, they're like, "Oh, you got to go out west. They're paying $18 an hour for cashiers and stuff." I was like, "No fucking way." I'll believe it when I see it, I guess, you know.
And they were.
And my wife was a school teacher at the time, and so we moved there. Driving down the street in fucking Minot, and there was just like signs on both sides of the fucking road. They're just like $18, $19, $17, $18, just competing for people. And some of the other stuff too is like they were trying to get at, like with the roustabout labor and stuff for the oil rigs, they were trying to get everybody out of the man camps. So these hotels were just going up out of nowhere in Minot, and then like all these hotels would go up, and oil companies would just rent them out for like a year at a time. So like you couldn't get a room. They were just basically building apartment complexes.
Exactly. That's what they did. That's how I lost one of my little clinic things I used to do out in Williston. Was that the place that we'd stay each year. That's we only spent like 3 or 4 days out there doing this. It was a drumline clinic out there. Got rented out by the year by these oil companies, so they had no place to put us anymore. So they had to literally just shut it down because of that.
Right. Or they go in and they buy a lot of like old apartment complexes, and then they'll jack the rent to like $1,100 or something, and then you have poor Edna who's on $400 of Social Security or whatever it is. You know what I mean? She can't afford that, and so they'd clear them out just by jacking the price on them. And so there was a lot of that going on at the time. And this was before the boom slowed down. So we were out there when it was like going crazy. And so we did, like I said, I'll never complain about what they paid me. And we got lucky because we were renting from the school because she was working at some rural school. And they had like, we have housing here. And for like $100 you can live in this apartment.
Oh,
so
very nice.
We were bringing it all home. And so we still have a lot of friends out there. And as a band, we play out there. And we do really, really well. And we have a lot of fans out there and stuff. But we were out there last weekend, as a matter of fact, and played in Partial. And the shows are always nuts. They're always crazy. They're always great. But like I said, it's a little bit different of a crowd. It's a lot rougher around the edges, you know. So we lived out there for a while, but my heart of hearts was always kind of in the Red River Valley. And so we had talked, we were out there for probably 3-4 years. And so I was like, well, I miss my hockey games. I miss my UND hockey games and kind of miss the Bison and all that kind of stuff. And so we kind of made plans to move back. And so I took a job just at a truck stop to pass the time once she got a teaching job in Lancaster, which is like 10 miles away from where I live. And so she'd had the job. We were moving at the end of the year, so we had to get through the summer and the spring. And so, like I said, I'll never complain about what they paid me because it allowed us to put a down payment on a house and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, we bought the house in Hallock for like dirt cheap, you know what I mean? So,
I about imagine,
yeah. Yep. So, and it's right across the street from from a railroad. And so it's like, it's a nice place, but it's like, you know, it's bought it for just nothing. And I was like, can't beat that as long as you don't mind driving an hour, 2 hours everywhere you go, which doesn't bother me. So we moved back out there, just, you know, so haven't looked back, haven't regretted a second of it.
So let me ask you this. How many people live in this town then?
Hallock, it's 1,000 people, I think.
1,000 people, and I'm guessing that you stick out a little bit.
A little bit,
Just
yeah.
Just a little.
Because this is, I guess, I mean, I'm an old school dude, man. I dress the way that I want to dress, and I don't ask anyone else to do it.
I wish I could grow facial hair like that, just a little bit.
Oh, jeez, that
I
looks
give
like
like
Wayne
two,
Static right there.
like a 2 or 3 is going around the other direction.
Well, I tell everybody the same thing, man. I believe in you. You can do this. You know what I mean? All you got to do is throw the razor away. You know what I mean?
I've tried. I get the mutton chops huge, but
Oh,
that's about
dude,
it.
I'm a huge Motorhead guy. I love Motorhead.
So,
And
you
so
guys
like,
try to like match Wayne Static with like that hairstyle,
Yeah.
get it as long as he had it.
well, like, I tell everybody too, as far as facial hair goes, man. Like I tell everybody, it's like, okay, do yourself a favor. Don't shave for a year if you can stand it. Just hold it out. There's transition periods between, you know, so it's like you'll get scruffy and you'll have the 5 o'clock shadow. After that, it gets full. So then you're in like the Al Borland territory from Home Improvement. You know?
Okay.
After the Borland, when you let it keep going, you'll get into homeless territory. This is when everyone's after you now. Your grandma, your mom, your girlfriend, whoever it is telling you, shave that fucking thing because it looks like you're homeless. You know? So just tune them out. Tune them all out and say and tune them all. Here we go.
Like Cito over here,
Tune
yeah.
them all out. Tune them all out and just keep growing it and tell them, like, I'm doing this for us. You know? Doing this for everybody. And just live in a vision. Don't live in circumstances. Live in a vision, you know. After you get out of the homeless, you start to get into, like, professor territory or Civil War general territory. And then after that, you get, hopefully, it's like mine grows really, really long, and so you get into like wizard territory. You know? So, but I tell everybody, once you grow it for a year, everything you can grow will be present. It'll just get longer after that.
So how long did it take you to make that happen? Because now that's the huge styles. Everyone's got that Chris Stapleton stuff going on like that.
Sure.
But it's like, that's something you just didn't plan for, is this is going to be the style in a few years.
Yeah, no, I started growing it. I started growing it, I think, in 2018, 2017, something like that. And I just...
4 years young.
Yeah, and so I just kind of got sick of shaving it, and I got sick of keeping it clean and neat. And at that time, I was kind of like... I was kind of coming into my own as far as just style and metal and everything. Well, I've always been a metalhead and everything, but I had this foray where I was like... crazy religious for a long time, and it like got in the way of me exploring a lot of different things.
Interesting. We'll have to come back and talk about
that.
Well,
it influences
maybe
a lot.
Braid it.
I do braid it. It just depends on the occasion. I mean, I'll style it differently depending on what I'm doing.
You do the dime bag thing every once in a while. Put it red.
I've thought about it, and I've chickened out every time.
Because now you know what to do for Halloween.
Yeah, right. I've chickened out only because, like, my hairstylists and stuff, they'll say, like, dyeing your beard is tough because the hair is so much coarser, and if you braid it, it'll fry it out. And I'm like, I don't know. It's already cinnamon. It's a pretty intense color to begin with.
Yeah, but then you braid it and then do like that really high mohawk or hairstyle like Wayne did.
The Liberty spikes or whatever. Yeah. Well, and the mohawk, like, it'll just kind of go. I mean, put it really short, and then I'll just have it go until I can't keep it in without corn syrup anymore. And then I'll bring it back down, and so it just kind of changes the dynamic of it. So there'll be pictures of me when it's a little longer and a little shorter and things like that.
So let's bring you back around here. Sure. So college, where'd you go to college at?
I got my undergraduate degree from Valley City State.
Valley City?
And then I did some graduate coursework at UND online for forensic psychology. So I ended up getting my master's degree through them.
I see. Master's degree.
Yep, for forensic psych.
Excellent.
And it's just a really, really expensive paperweight. You know, it allows me to talk about serial killers and criminals. So at a party, I can kick out some interesting factoids about Ted Bundy.
We'll have to talk about that here in a bit too. But then, where's your music side of all this? Like, where did this come into play? Or it's just sort of like, I won't say a fantasy, but just something you just kind of fell into?
No, I've been doing music my whole life. And I've been into metal as long as I can remember, you know. So I've been doing that the whole time. And so, I mean, I got into metal, I think, I was like probably 12 or 13. So, I mean.
That's about the time I got into it.
Yep. And I was an old school dude and am still. So it was like Slayer, Metallica, you know, Megadeth.
Is there anything
Death
else?
Angel, Morbid Angel, you know, so I just went nuts with all this, you know what I mean? And it started, when it really, really started was like, I was maybe 12 or 13, and I heard Roll On Down the Highway by Bachman Turner Overdrive, BTO. And listening to Fred Turner, the old school Tower of Power guy, there was so much power in his voice. And I was like, dude, that's the coolest thing I'd ever heard at the time, you know. And then this was before I'd even heard Lemmy, you know what I mean? And so
Lemmy is God.
Yeah, like Lemmy is God, man. I've got a huge Motorhead tattoo like on my side and everything else. So it's like, but this is before I'd even heard Lemmy. And but listening to Fred Turner, you know, was like the coolest thing I'd ever heard. And I was like, it's like, I don't know, it struck me like like doing a drug you like too much the first time. You know, it's like, I need to fall down this rabbit hole. So I started on that rabbit hole and just went. And I always had this super love for like these barrel-chested whiskey voice kind of dudes. So, and the way that I grew up was no bargain, you know what I mean? So like my parents left when I was really, really young, and the emotional, psychological trauma, abuse, all that kind of stuff. So I grew up without any parents, living on my own from the time I was 15, you know. So being so helpless, listening to those old school dudes, you know, especially the Fred Turners and, you know, Lemmy. And I got into Lemmy because I'm a huge wrestling fan. And so, like, when I heard The Game the first time.
It's all about the game.
Yeah, right.
You know you play it. It's all about control. And if you can take it.
And the fucking laugh that he lets out or whatever, like, you know? And the bass is so fucking loud. And it was unlike anything I'd ever heard. I was like, what the fuck am I even hearing right now? And like, I had seen people play bass, and I'm like, I've seen people play bass, and it sounds really plucky.
And hearing it live is even more fucked up.
Dude, I know. And so when I got into Lemmy, it was all over after that. And so like, I spent all my teenage years. People be like, no, I did, you know, I mean, I'm an old school drug addict and everything else too, but it was like I'd spend my weekends either doing drugs or like people would be like, oh, we're gonna go party and hang out. What are you gonna do? It's like, oh no, this new album dropped. I gotta listen to this new album. People are like, no, but what are you doing with like the rest of yours? What are you doing with the rest of your weekend? And I'm like, no, you didn't hear me. This new album came out. That's what I'm doing this weekend, you know. And I'm talking old school, man, lyric booklet, whole deal. And if it wasn't a new album, I'd spend time on forum boards, and it'd be like, yeah, you know, you'd have the old school guys being like, yeah, this new school stuff, it ain't anything compared to the original death metal movement of the early 1990s. And I'm like, I don't know anything about the death metal movement of the early 90s. YouTube, you know what I mean? And so it's just like, you got to listen to Death Angel, Morbid Angel, and Grave. Like, I fucking love Grave.
And
so like,
I haven't heard that name in years.
Oh, dude, Grave, I'm all over it, man. And so like, I would just look up the track listing, and I just look it up on YouTube, and if the lyrics weren't there, I'd go to Google and I'd type in the song name, and then you just like go back and forth between.
You just sit there and read them.
Just read them as
you just go in and just study these things.
Yeah,
Right, that was the best time.
Yep. And so like I was either doing that or drugs, and then when I started really getting into metal, you know, it was Metallica top to bottom, you know. I finally got in my first band, and everybody wants to be a guitarist when they first start, you know.
Of course.
Guitar. But
Even me.
I'm so ham-handed that like even though I was like studying music and I'm classically trained, and that was about the only that and English were the only subjects in school I gave a shit about, and so it was music and English. So I was into music my whole life, and it's like I was learning scales and was learning tunings and was learning all this different stuff.
So what was your first instrument?
My first instrument was the trombone.
There we go.
And what was your first band?
My first band is a band called The Unrest, and I was in it with a few buddies of mine who have another podcast called Super Metal World. And Michael actually still lives in town here, and they are doing really, really well with it. They've spoken to a few different people. They talked to Paolo from Trivium.
Nice.
They were speaking with some guys from like Decibel. They've had them on, Metal Hammer, you know, guys like that. And so I was in my first band with them, and we didn't have a drummer. But that didn't stop us, man.
Who needs drummers?
Yeah, right. But that didn't stop us, man. And it was actually, we released it. It's still on iTunes and everything. You can still go and look it up. And it's like, you listen to that, and it's like, I had ruined my voice doing vocals incorrectly for so many years that like I listened to it and it's kind of painful for me to hear. But like I listened to it and I'm like, that album is actually better than it has any right to be. there's no drummer on it, and it's like nobody really knows what they're doing, but it kind of half stays together, you know. So
It's just the raw.
yeah, and so I had gotten into at that point, you know, I just went way down this rabbit trail, and it was just my old school. I had a CD player, and I just walk around town at like 2-3 in the morning, you know, and it was just me and the CDs, and I didn't have anywhere else to be, and it was just music, drugs, booze, and lyrics, and just that was what I did. And so
And this is all in Valley City?
no, I grew up in Ellendale. It's south of
Ellendale.
south
You
of
mentioned that,
Jamestown,
yes.
yeah. South of Jamestown, and so it was just weird. This was my steady life, and right about the time I was like, I don't know, maybe 15, 16 years old or whatever, I was just you try to find, especially when you come from a place when you don't have a home life or it's been really rough, you try to find some sense of belonging or being, and
Yes.
metal certainly provided that, you know, being an outcast and all that. But well, when you're young, you know, things make a lot of sense to you, and it's a part of my life, and I won't apologize for it, you know. So I got really religious for a while because it's like, well, this works for these people, you know, and it's a sense of belonging and togetherness. So maybe I can get a piece of it, you know.
Interesting. So this
And
happened
so-
around the age of 16 then?
Yeah, around 16 or 17.
You got into religion
Yep, I was
quite a bit.
Really, really religious. And then, but the metal thing didn't go anywhere. And I was like, you know, these people, so like that was the first time I had tried to get sober and off of drugs and everything else like that. And they were like, well.
And what
we-
brought you into this religion? Was practicing thing? Was it like
well,
a
it was-
church or a person or a group?
It was a few, it was some churches around town and where I grew up, and it was a youth group and stuff like that, and friends that I had in school were going to the, you know, so like their missionary and outreach and stuff. Friends that I had at school were also religious, and so they were like, I suppose I can still thank them even in the aftermath because I'm not dead. Yeah. so if you're gonna overdose, you know, usually it's when you're really, really rich or when you're really, really young. One of the two, usually, you know. There are no absolutes, you know what I mean, but it's usually those are the two. So it's like I avoided the overdosing when I was young, probably about the time that I would have, because I had gotten really religious for a while. But I told them at the time, I was like, well, I'm not giving up the metal thing. You can't have that. You know, and like, you can't have that. And they're like, that's okay, man. There's Christian metal bands. And I'm like, what?
You can take the metal away from the man, but you can't take the man away from the metal.
Right. And
When I was working at the CD shop, a few of those came in and put them in, and it was like, you couldn't understand, of course, what they were saying at all.
Right.
But if you sit there and you read the lyric sheet inside, I was like, Jesus saves me, and all. And like,
yeah.
How do you get that out of there? But all right.
Sure. Yeah. And now, even to this day, there's a few overhangs that I still have, that bands that I went crazy with, that I think really do it right. And to be honest with you, I really don't give a shit what you want to sing about, as long as it's real to you. That's all that I care
Amen.
about. As long as I can tell that it means something to you and that you're singing about what you believe, whatever that might be. And so I got really heavy into Demon Hunter at the time. And, well, still, I shouldn't say at the time. That was my first tattoo, was the Demon Hunter logo. I've still got it.
Okay. I'm not
and
familiar
so,
with that.
lyrically, Demon Hunter is just beautiful. So, like, a lot of the things that I write lyrics, and I've had some other frontmen and people, too, approach me about writing shadow lyrics and stuff like that, because we'll post the lyric sheets for the band and stuff, and people really dig the lyrics, and so they'll get at me for just want me to read over things or help, get a second set of eyes and lyrics that they've got and stuff. And they'll ask me about it, like, well, where'd you learn how to do this? Like, there's no school for it, man. I was like, I just spent every waking moment just digesting how my heroes did it. You know what I mean? So lyricists that I really, really loved. And the first one was Hetfield, was the one that was really, really, who I thought was really, really brilliant, at least when I was really young.
Very inspirational. Yes.
And specifically his lyrics from, like, Puppets, Master Puppets. Like, that's just a brilliant, brilliant song. And it's way deeper than anybody even ever gives it credit for. Because what he's talking about is addiction, straight up. I mean, people pick up on that, but it's so strange to hear the addiction talking for an entire song at the addict, because that's what that song is. You know what I mean? It's literally the addiction talking to the addict. And so you get one part in the whole song when the addict talks back, and it's right before the solo, when he's like, laughter, laughter, where are the dreams that I've been after? You promised only lies, And then at the very end, all I hear or see is laughter, laughing at my cries. So it's like he tries to stay away this whole song, and the addiction is just pulsing in the back of his fucking brain the entire song. And then at the end, he's like, it didn't work. I still want to do it. And then right before the solo, he yells out, "Fix me!" Like, basically says, like, fuck me up, man. Like, I'm done being sober, And then at the end of the song, obviously, with all the laughter and everything else, the addiction ends up winning. So it's like, and when you go through and you analyze it line by line, only somebody who's in the throes of addiction or understands it deeply could write something like that. So it's like that, like, changed the way that I looked at putting words to a song. It's so much more than that. And so it started with Hetfield. Now that's just one example.
And so is that like one of the songs that like really helps you when it comes to writing your material now that you're with Shotgun Facelift and doing all the other material that you do on the side as well?
Well, the one that, like, the stuff for Skeleton Rose, the lyrics for Skeleton Rose are quite a bit different than the stuff for Shotgun. And the stuff for Skeleton Rose is progressive melodic death metal. So, like, 8, 9, 10-minute songs, 6-part guitar harmonies, and like that kind of stuff. So coming into Shotgun, which is a groove metal band, everything is, like, really concise, very 3-4 minutes, get in, kick the doors in, and get out, basically. So, like, lyrically, when I got brought into Shotgun, I was like, okay, concise is nice, you know what I mean? Like, very, very blunt, or I speak a lot of metaphor. I mean, all lyricists in metal typically do, but I was just like, all right, we're gonna just crunch this way down and think hook, think, tight rhyme scheme, that kind of stuff. And the one that I lean on now, which is coming back to Demon Hunter, which is Ryan Clark, probably my biggest lyrical inspiration as far as, like, the pieces to the puzzle, like how he likes to bolt the words into place and stuff, learning about slant rhymes, half rhymes, consonant sounds, even you could use, rounded vowel sounds that are not exact rhymes, but you keep the same scheme, or using onomatopoeia, little word tricks and things like that to be playful in your lyrics, and to not find ways to not get redundant, and finding ways to still be clever, and like I said, using, bringing the hashtag, lyrics matter kind of thing. So it's more than just putting words to a song. And when you can bridge that gap of not just putting words to a song, I think when everybody's on the same page as far as the song goes, the message goes a lot further when it's basically kind of written out like a thesis, you know what I mean? Like start to finish. And Shotgun was very much that way. Everything was very bolted in place. Everything was very much like, these are the songs, bro. Like, this riff goes on 3 times. That's what you've got. You know what I mean? So we ain't extending it. That, you know, this is real quick stuff. Like for Shotgun, probably I think the most important band all, and gets into one of my other loves too, is Pantera. But it's like Pantera hit me at a time in my life when I needed it. So I got the Far Beyond Driven album cover just tattooed on my chest.
Oh, the guy with the drill bit through the skull.
Yeah, and I got the block too.
And I got the Far Beyond Driven cover with Slaughtered above it. It's one of my favorite deep cuts from Pantera, Slaughtered. And so I got into Pantera in my early 20s when I started doing drugs again. And if there's another band,
so religion went away.
Religion went away. Yep. And but Demon Hunters still stuck around.
Okay.
But Demon Hunters thing was very, like I said, which makes sense from the Shotgun context, where it was like everything's really bolted in place for Demon Hunter. Everything is very clipped, short, and precise, and how thoughtfully Ryan works through his lyrics as far as what he's trying to get across and stuff. And they were probably one of the Christian bands that was very unpreachy. They really wanted to put metal on the list just as high as the religion. So they make no bones about it that they're a Christian band, but it's like they're not quite as nearly as preachy. August Burns Red's also another really, really good one. And I don't, by and large, I don't foray into metalcore that much, but August Burns Red, I don't know what it is, man. I can listen to those dudes drop the same fucking breakdown 1,000 times, and it's always great. It's always great, and so there's something about the way that they do it that's just really real to them, and you can feel it.
It's all about the breakdown,
right? So I kept August Burns Red, and I kept Demon Hunter, and so those two to this day are still really, really prevalent in what I do. But like when it came to Pantera, when I kind of forayed out of it, but religion got in the way, because I'm an old school horror fan and stuff like that too. So like, there's this weird dichotomy between religion and any sort of dark material where you feel like you're almost cheating on your belief by being into such dark things. But I couldn't fight it. I was always into dark things, no matter what I was into or what I was doing. So I remember having so many questions that people couldn't answer in the religion, when I was like, I don't know why I'm this way. I just am. These hymns don't hold anything for me. I mean, they do. I like hymnal music now, to be honest with you. It's really pleasant. But at the time, I was just like so fucking angry. I was just like, I don't know why things are this way. You know what I mean? I don't know what makes me so much less worthy of having a family than this kid down the street. And it wasn't just that. Like cancer and babies and all that kind of stuff. It's all part of the grand design, and it's just like, maybe the grand design fucking sucks. You know what I mean? So just questions I had that people couldn't answer. You know what I mean? So I spent my life searching for it, to be honest with you. Religion's something that I still study heavily to this day, and so I'm still very spiritual. But the idea too is that it's like when you study so many different world religions, they're all kind of saying the same types of stuff, just in a different language. And so there's usually always a flood story. There's usually always a story about somebody walking on water. There's usually always healing a leper. So I'm like, okay, first of all, we're listening to people that are 6,000 years away, that are scribbling in the dirt the best that they know how, as far as what they're seeing and what they were dealing with. So it's like, okay, first of all, you got to kind of temper your expectations of like what you're going to read, but it's interesting how much overlap there is, and as long as it helps people, I'm all for it. You know what I mean? So I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, at least not anymore. But I did go through a period when I was like, it got in the way of me exploring how much I loved horror and how much I loved metal and how much I loved all this other stuff. And I'm like, this is really inhibiting things that are really near and dear to me. And I feel like if a religion makes you feel bad about who you truly are, then that's not really a religion at all. I mean, unless you like hurting animals, then then you probably shouldn't do that. but like different. Then you've got some issues. But like I was just into metal and I was into horror, and I was like, I'm being shamed for being into those things, and so I was like, enough of that. And so my extended family at the higher levels, being Catholic and really intense and that kind of stuff. It didn't really go over all that well. So I got ostracized from a lot of family in my early 20s and a lot of just kind of everything at that time. So then I got into fucking Pantera when I started doing drugs again, and I just kind of never really looked back. I just sort of like that meme with Tony Montana, and he's looking at that pile of cocaine, and then just like drops his head into it. The pile was Pantera. You know,
say hello to my little friend.
Yeah, and so just like everything, give me it all. I want all of it. And Pantera, like, was so instrumental in, like, not to be corny or cheesy, but it, you know, there's different bands that have taught us how to do different things, and Pantera taught us how to walk, and Pantera taught us how to walk with strength and how to believe in yourself and, you know, all that kind of stuff, and how to be real to the fucking core. And so I just super got into Pantera. And so fast forward when it comes to Shotgun and lyrics and all that kind of stuff. Excuse me. But so I got in the audition with Shotgun. I've been a fan of Shotgun for a long time before I got into the band.
Yeah, so let's just back this up just a little bit. It's fascinating listening to you talk about just how you just process lyrics and what you're doing with all that. And it just, I don't know. To me, I've never actually like thought that hard about the lyrics before, but now you're really making me think about just different perspectives of just, you know, pulling apart like what's been written on the page, much less, you know, what's actually just being sung. So how did you find out about Shotgun Facelift in the first place? And then, because I think the last time I saw you, it was at that show.
It was
the end of days show at the TAC
last February.
And I think I remember you talking about this because you were you weren't the original singer, which it kind of floored me right there because you just fit in so well with what was going on there. And then just the respect everyone had for you and what was going on. But it was like they were going on for a few years before you even started. So how did you meet up? How did any of this happen? I mean, you're not even in their town, so.
Yeah, right. No, Shotgun was formed in 2012, and there's been like, I mean, Damien would be a better one to talk to about some of the band history. He's the last original member, but I was doing the Skeleton Rose thing. So fast forward through the Pantera days and the college days and all that other kind of stuff. When I had moved back to the Red River Valley from the West, and I realized this gigantic college debt that was racking up, and I was like, you know, I don't like the idea of being in counseling only from the standpoint of like, there's like this will make sense in a second, but there's like a pre-recorded list of responses you're allowed to give people to not get sued for malpractice kind of thing. So you have to sort of like put your opinions in a box. And I was like, I don't really feel like you're helping people then. You know, I feel like you're just kind of asking them the same question that they've asked themselves over and over and over again. So
how do you feel about that?
Yeah, right, exactly. So I was like, I feel like I can, you know, given all of the terrible things that I've been through, I feel like I can have more to offer people if I'm not bound by legalities and things like that. So when I was like, okay, well, cool, that's $100,000 right out the window, you know. So I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna just kind of find myself. I'm gonna get a job, and I'm just gonna kind of live right in this crazy thing that we're all doing together. This, you know, traveling to the grave kind of thing. So when I had moved back out here, I was like, well, I'd always enjoyed writing and I'd always enjoyed music, and somewhere with college and religion and stuff that got off the rails. So that got me into this place that got in the way of me exploring all different kinds of horror, man. So there was like, my favorite horror movie is The Exorcist, and I hadn't seen The Exorcist until I was like, I think I was like 24 or 25 when I finally saw it.
First time? Oh.
Yeah. So I was an old school Halloween guy. Like, so Halloween and The Exorcist are my favorites, and so like, but religion had gotten in the way of a lot of this. And when I finally kind of came back to it, I was like done with religion and all that kind of stuff. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to dress the way that I want to dress, and I'm going to just kind of do my own thing, and I'm going to write music, and I'm going to write horror novels. And that started in like 2015, like right after the move back. And so I started writing horror novels, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this, man. And I liked writing music, but because I'm ham-handed and I can't play guitar, I'm like, okay, well, I can write it, you know what I mean, and music theory and all that other kind of stuff. So I started going through GarageBand, and I can play lap steel, and in GarageBand it sits out flat, so I was just basically writing compositions, and then the instruments ended up being all electronic, and it was just kind of like, well, if I sell a couple of copies, cool, you know. So that's how it started. And I started writing horror novels and then just selling all this stuff at horror conventions. And then I started just going to local shows after that, because when I was working at DigiKey for a while over in Thief River Falls, and I'd have people come through and be like, oh, I heard you write horror novels and you do this metal thing. And I was like, yeah. And so they're like, cool, you should come to my show or whatever. And so it was a couple people in some local bands and stuff. So there's I don't think they're a band anymore, but there's a drummer originally from a band called Everything is a Cycle. His name's Michael Ortiz. And he'd invited me out to a few local shows. And the first time I saw Shotgun, I think it was at an event called Dredge Fest, and it was over in Devil's Lake. And that was like basically every local band from North Dakota was there, other than like most of the big Fargo bands. It was basically like everybody who wasn't in Fargo was kind of like in Devil's Lake. So like,
of course.
Yep. So it was like Jay from Anomic was there. That was the first time I met Jay. And it was so weird. I went back
everywhere.
Oh yeah, dude, right? And that dude, what I love about him, that dude will play in a fucking porta potty. If you booked him there.
That is
you know what
true.
I mean?
I know about Jay. That is absolutely true. And that's it. We had Jay on here, and I had the big question of asking him like the furthest place he ever played, and it blew my hair back about where it was, and we didn't get any sound on it. So we're bringing Jay back. We'll be talking about
Hell
it.
yeah,
Okay, sorry, I'm getting
anyway,
off.
No worries. But it was so weird because I went backstage at that show because I knew a couple of the dudes just kind of offhandedly, and I knew Mike, and Mike was like, yeah, come on back and meet everybody from all these different bands. Everybody's just hanging out backstage while they were changing the set out. And I was the only dude there that wasn't in a band that was performing that night. And I was like, one of these things is not like the other kind of thing. And I was there with my daughter and my wife, and they had to pull some strings to let my daughter in because it was like a 21 and up kind of thing. And that was the only way that I could go because I didn't have a babysitter. And so I'm back there meeting everybody. And it was a good time, man. We just had a lot of conversations, and a lot of different conversations about just metal and life and everything else. And what had gone around my inn was like, regardless of what anybody ever thought of the music from Skeleton Rose, the vocals was always something that they really, really dug. And so they were like, this, you check out this guy's vocals. And so I was like, I didn't go there promoting my own stuff. You know, other people in the group had brought it up that had heard the vocals and stuff. And so then we just started talking and bullshitting and everything else. And I'd watch Shotgun set. I was like, well, I'm going to head back inside. I'm going to grab a beer. So I went and grabbed a beer, and I watched Shotgun set, and shit just blew me away. It was like, they were doing dual guitar stuff, throwing it back and forth between the two guitars, and it was like groove metal, and everything was like short, clipped, and precise, and Damien was playing solos, like old school stuff that I was just like, I am all about this, and so that was the first time I saw them. Excuse me. And so I was like, I'm really into that. And it was like, everything was in blues scale. You know what I mean? So it was really groovy and really catchy, and the hooks
pentatonic.
Yep. and the hooks were really tight. And so I was like, yeah, I'm definitely buying a shirt, and I'm putting these guys in my list of like bands to go see. And so I started following them on Facebook. They played some shows at Ojada and Grand Forks. I went to every show that I could that they had because I was such a fan. And so I do the songs, like the stuff with Tim, the old singer or whatever. I downloaded all that onto my Apple Music and stuff, and I knew the words. I was listening to it at the gym. I was just like, Shotgun Facelift, like loved everything about it. And so over the years, just with drunk friends of mine, you know what I mean? We'd be driving around and stuff. I'm like, man, if I could dream up a band to front. I was like, I'm hearing Pantera and these guys. I'm hearing little bits of even little bits of Megadeth and some Metallica, and it's just like some old school Sepultura, you know what I mean? So it's like just hitting all the right spots, you know what I mean? And I was just like, I loved it. I was all about it. And so I went to probably 4 or 5 of the shows, and I was just super, super into it. And then it was like out of nowhere, they had this show at Half Brothers Brewery in Grand Forks, and they're like, a week before the show, they're like, yeah, this is our last show ever. I was like, no. Like, no, but I'll be there. So I was there for it, and it's a great show. And I met Damien there, and I had just become acquaintances with him. Really, I mean, we had each other on Facebook, but we certainly weren't friends. And so over the years, they're like, "Yeah, we're done," and I was just kind of like, I don't know how done they really. I mean, are they really done, or what's going on, kind of thing. And I remember talking to Michael Ortiz, and I was like, "Are they really, really done?" And he's like, "I guess I don't know. You know, they're kind of jamming. We don't really know." And so I just kind of let it be because I didn't want to be that guy that was like, "Hey, let me join your band." Little did I know that like that's how auditions work. Like is to like try to put in for it. So
it's true.
So
You gotta ask.
You gotta ask. Otherwise, the answer is always no. And so I was actually getting ready for a convention in Kansas City or Minneapolis to go sell some books and stuff. I went into Walmart to go get some stuff printed up, and I came back out, and Damien, who rides a Harley, black on black Harley, and was just leaning
the part.
Yep. And he was just leaning against my car having a smoke.
Oh, he found you.
Like he'd been waiting for me, he was just leaning on my car. And he's like, I saw your car for a second, thought I'd sit around and bullshit. And so I was like, holy fuck, holy shit. Like, I was like the exact guy that I wanted to have a one-on-one with. And so we were talking and just kind of the same thoughts that I had for years, because for the longest time I'd said that I was done with bands, because you get in with people that aren't serious, or you get in with, band drama or whatever else, and it just kind of gets in the way of everybody having fun. And a while back, I was like, screw it, I'll do everything, and I'll write everything, and then whatever happens, happens, So that was kind of the word that went around, is that it was like, unbeknownst to me, the word that went around, like, oh, John doesn't want to join any bands. And so that was the thing why nobody talked to me about it. And I was like, oh.
Isn't that interesting how these things just kind of float out of nowhere, and you have no idea how it started in the first place? Yep.
So we're talking, and I was just in my back of my head, I'm like, either spit it out now or hold your peace, kind of thing. So I was like, well, here's the deal, man. I guess I don't know what happened or would you guys be interested in having another vocalist, but if you'd ever be interested in having another one, I'd be honored to audition. And then he's like, I'll definitely kick that around, man. It's been a hell of a thing, especially since it fell apart. You know what I mean? I've had a lot of different people say that we should start some stuff or do some stuff. And I was like, well, if you decide you want to do it, let me know. And then he messaged me like a week later, and he's like, were you really serious about jamming with Shotgun? I was like, fuck yes, I was serious about jamming with Shotgun. And so we set up a time. He's like, yeah, show up at this time. Here's the address or whatever, and see what kind of shakes out. And so I showed up, and even though I'm fairly experienced speaking in front of crowds and stuff, I'm not really shy or whatever, but I got to that place, and I was finishing a smoke, and I just like started freaking out like a little kid, you know what I mean? It's like
the nerves.
I mean, it's not like Shotgun is like a world-renowned band or anything, but it was just like
something
this,
you cared about.
Yeah, exactly. And it was just like I really wanted to be in this band, and I was like, I did some live discs for Skeleton Rose and stuff where I did like 3-hour performances, and it's like I rehearse 7, 8, 9 hours a week, and so it's like I was like, but what if my voice goes out and it just doesn't work? And it's like that doesn't happen. Just calm down. You know what I mean? And so I'm sitting outside of the rehearsal space, and then like just breathe, and then from inside, Damien just busts out, "I'm Broken" by Pantera. Doom doom boom boom, and they just busted into it. And I was like, I'm home. This is the band. This is the one, And so we started from there and just kind of never looked back. And it's a good thing that people dig it. And that's kind of what we get from a lot of people that'll say, that it's a good fit. People dig the vocals on the band and everything. And then we picked up Matt and Jody this last year from Save Your Sorrow. They were a band out of Devil's Lake, another groove metal band. And they ran into the same thing where like the rest of their band wasn't really, I guess, they felt more driven than the rest of the band did, and it's not really my place to say much more than that, I don't think. But anyway, they were interested in hooking up, and so I had talked to them, and I was just like, okay, here's the deal. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do it for real. Like, we're gonna give this a real shot. So we're gonna rehearse this much, and this is what rehearsals are gonna be, and then we're gonna be doing shows, and we're gonna be doing albums, and it's gonna be disciplined, and we're gonna really give a full-fledged shot at this. And so none of us are fucking around, basically. You know, we're really serious about this. And so they've basically been like, where have you been? Everything you've said, yeah, everything you've said is our favorite thing to do every day, you know. So it worked out really, really well. They were in the same kind of mental headspace, and we'd said the same stuff. We were like, well, we're all older dudes. You know, I'm the baby in the band, and I'm 30. You know, everybody's older than I am.
Interesting.
So,
I never would have guessed that, but I wouldn't have guessed that you were, well, I guess I wouldn't have thought that they'd be older than 30.
Well, I mean, so they're a little, so like we'll do shows, and the shows are intense. I mean, we give everything we've got, and it's kind of funny, like after the sets, because it's like we treat it like every set is our last one. So it's like we give everything we've got, and it's like, and the sets are like, you know, we do a lot of crowd work and things like that too. Like we want to bring back that old school show where it's like it's a metal show but it's a rock show kind of thing. Where like everybody's drinking and having a good time. That's what we want. There's no division. There's no politics. There's no bullshit. It's like everybody's part of the family. So like, we get done with sets and bands like, oh, we're gonna go get plastered and plowed, and we're like, we got kids to call and we're pretty tired. We're gonna go to bed. You know,
oh, life.
We got some questions here for you, John.
Oh, sure.
We got Logan Flay says, when you guys playing in the Fargo Moorhead next?
We are playing in June at the Aquarium. I'm not sure who's playing on that bill yet, but yeah, we're playing the Aquarium in June.
And then also someone, Lavenka, wants to braid that beard of yours.
That's awesome.
And then she asked, what advice would you give to someone who has a mental block creatively?
Oh, so for writer's block. I just attack it. Don't sit on it because it's just going to get worse. That's always been my experience on it, is like be relentless with your creativity. Like creative muses are kind of weird, man. It's like everybody wants to wait for their muse. We think about, oh, I'm just gonna wait
until it just comes to you in a dream.
Right. And the thing about your creativity is I look at it more like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets, and the easier it is to
tap
into.
Okay.
And muses are kind of like, they're pretty. If you want to think about, it's not a perfect metaphor, but it's serviceable for what we're talking about. If you want to think about muses as a human being, he's not a guy that wants you to. He's not an old grandma that wants you to come visit him. He's kind of the presumptuous uncle that's got all these awards and stuff. You got to go hunt him down, and he like respects the grind. He'll reward people that grind. Is kind of how I look at the muse. And so, yeah, he's not going to come find you because he's got a lot of other people to go hang out with. So, if you wait for him, you're just going to get more distant, you know. So it's like the way that a lot of times too.
Yeah, so just get on it.
Yeah, well, and a lot of times too is like you'll waste so much time. Like I remember the quote that I always come back to is like, how much of life is lost in waiting. You know, you're waiting for this or you're waiting for that.
Oh yeah.
And at the end of the day, you're just wasting time. And so many times we're afraid of putting out bad work. It's like, okay, well, I wrote these lyrics this morning, but they're really shitty and they're no good. It's like, that's fine. No one ever has to see them. You know what I mean? But it's keeping you sharpening the tool. I mean, you're still going to the grind. And I'm friends with a lot of tattoo artists, and the old adage is like, you have 10,000 bad drawings in your hands before you get to the good ones. You know, and so you're gonna have stinkers, you're gonna have shitters. You know, so I mean, even when people come to me now about lyrics or whatever else, like, oh, I really dug this set of lyrics. It's like, yeah, you guys are coming in at like, if my whole life lyrically is on a spectrum, you know what I mean? My whole life of shitty lyrics has been about, you know, right up here, and then like the last set of like 50 sets of lyrics have been decent. So you're not seeing a lifetime of like really awful lyric writing, you know. So it's like Stephen King talks about that. He says, what is it? To write is beautiful, but to edit is divine. So it's like you can like I said, I mean, sit down for coffee hour in the mornings, you know what I mean, and get ritualized about it, get scheduled about it, you know, take it like a job almost, and people be like, well, it sucks the fun out of it. And be like, well, then sit around and keep not writing stuff, I guess. I don't know what to tell you, you know.
Just wonder if they just like to dream more about what it could be.
Yeah, could be.
Maybe that's probably what it is.
And so many times, you know, you feel like you're shoveling shit over your shoulder, like you're just doing shitty work. But we're too in our own heads sometimes as artists. We think it's shitty, and then someone else will come across and be like, dude, this is great stuff. I don't know what you're so worried about, you know. So we can get like this as artists sometimes, and so
true.
But so that's always my answer to it, is that it's like don't let writer's block or your block for creativity. It's kind of like a wall that goes up. When it's soft and it's new, it's easier to break through than when it's been there for a long time and it's hardened and solidified. So like if you have writer's block, don't sit back and wait for it to pass. Attack it.
Just get on it.
Mercilessly. You know what I mean? Like,
and this is coming from John.
Yep.
So listen up.
Yep.
All right, well, we need to break out with some Cito. What's going on out there? And after this little break with what's going on out there, we're gonna sit there. We're gonna listen to a track from at least I think it's one of the latest tracks from Shotgun Facelift, and now we're gonna ask John, like, where he expects to be here in the next year or so, at least touring wise or playing wise, or this is gonna get interesting. All right.
Sure.
All right, hey everyone, how y'all doing? This is Cito with the Uptown Report. At the Windbreak on Thursday, we got Sushi Roll, and then on Friday we got the Johnny Home Band. Sushi Roll will be back on Saturday, and then at the Tax Center we have on Friday we have Rumble Seat, which is a Mellencamp tribute band.
I would assume a tribute
Yep.
band it is.
And then on Saturday, Saving Abel and Dearly Departed. Those are local guys.
And
I'm
Dearly
thinking-
Departed has some kind of contest going on right now. I know I posted on the Uptown Tonight Facebook page for you to get onto that. You win tickets and some merchandise and all that sort of stuff for that show. So if you're interested in that, yeah, I think it ends on Friday.
Yep, that's a great one. So, and then Pop Rocks is going to be at the Shooting Star Casino in Mahnomen, Minnesota on Friday and Saturday. And at the Sanctuary Event Center is the D Mills and the Thrills 10-year anniversary concert, or
is that
celebration or remembering, Sunday on the 9th. And then let's see here, we got the Downtown Report at Slammers. We have an acoustic show with Mr. Terry Mackner. He's there on Saturday. And then at the Sandbar on Friday, we got 32 Below. Theater B. Where is Theater B? What is
Theater B is, I think it's on First Ave.
Okay.
I'm not entirely correct on that, I'm sure.
That is
but
the small, I had to look at this again, Small Mouth Sounds.
yes, and this is some kind of new musical or play that's come out, and that's going to continue on until the 15th of this month.
Okay, and then NDSU Theater has Annie on the Sunday. And then at the Diamond Lounge in Grand Forks, of course, is us, Uptown. We're back over there. We haven't been there for a year.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a while, so we'll be there Friday and Saturday night, rocking it out, doing what we do, and it's going to be fun.
Hell yeah.
Then we got Downtown at the Aquarium. We got the Summer Jump Off Hip Hop Show on Friday. And then
with Dakota Faye, Will Robinson, Cold Front, Duro, and I think it's Ruck.
And then at Bar 9, we got the Dead Beats going on. I think our old bass player, John Winter, is playing with the Dead Beats on that one. So that's going to be a good one. And then DCR, we got open mic on Thursdays.
And we also have one that's basically popped up like right before we started here, is that tonight at DCR is the Bad Moon Boys. They'll be taking the stage probably, they've just took the stage, so.
I love it. It sounds like we're like the 70s news people, like, hold on, Wade.
Yeah.
This just in.
Getting
This just
word,
in.
Yeah,
I'm getting a word. I'm covering my ear right now. At JC Chumley's, we got on Mondays, we got the comedian open mic. And then on Thursday, Rico Del Mar will be out there. And then, let's see here, we got the Downtown Report. The Three Lions Pub, Rick Adams will be out there on the Saturday, so he's Friday out there, and then Saturday there.
And Front Street is just open wide.
Look at that.
So every Monday they have an open mic night for musicians, and then on Wednesdays they have open mic nights for comedy. That's in the cellar there. On Thursdays, they have Vinyl plus Vino, whatever.
What is that? Mo.
Yeah, basically, so they have a DJ there on Thursdays, and then on this Friday they have I can't say these names.
We don't
and
pre-screen
Daniel Williams.
these. We don't pre-screen read these at all. We just go.
Stand-up show on Friday, right there. I think they're out of Minneapolis. So
Okay, well, that's gonna be good. At the Side Street Bar and Grill, we got Heart and Soul on Saturday, and then the Fargo VFW Last Resort FM will be out there Friday and Saturday night. Dempsey's Boogie Night will be out there Friday night. Then we got the Out of Town report here, and that is at the Original in Minot. We got who is that?
Alita's Way
Alita's Way and Moon Fever.
with Moon Fever.
On Friday night, Laughing Sun Brewery in the Bismarck Mandan area. Isn't that just one town, or is that?
I don't know which
I
town. it is.
always see
just
people
throw
say
it
that.
all
It's
over.
like, is that like when they say Fargo Moorhead area? It's like Bismarck Mandan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Open mic on Tuesdays. New musician artists Thursdays. What is this? Sundays with this sounds. What is that? Sunday.
Sunday with Mr. Gessel.
Oh.
That's on Friday. And Ghost Toast. I love that name.
Yeah, that's
on
great.
Saturday.
Ghost
wonderful.
Toast.
Ghost, that's phenomenal.
And then back at Bismarck Mandan, we got the Stage Stop Saloon. We got Small Town Boys on Friday and Saturday. And then the Southtown Poorhouse in Grand Forks on the Friday is Sushi Roll. And then Saturday is Slamabama doing their thing. So, all right, thank
And
you
the
guys.
phone is ringing already.
Yes. Oh, people are wanting to talk to us. We have a more important updates coming in right now with the music. So, Wade, I'm going to give it back to you because I got to get to these updates. So, there you go.
That is quite all right. And also remember that these times and dates are subject to change at any given notice, so please contact your venues before venturing out to any of these shows. All right, so we're back with John. Now, John, let's see. Cito, can we pull up that...
Song?
Yeah, our song here. I got basically a 30-second excerpt that I pulled off. Now, I think it goes into the breakdown because
Sure.
I really enjoyed that section. So maybe not so much the lyrics, but it was just something I thought was neat, and I'm thinking of it as a drummer aspect. I'm not really thinking
Oh,
of
hell
lyricists
yeah. No,
such as...
that breakdown is nasty.
So-
it's pretty great.
So in the recording... And that was an excerpt of Famine. Did I say that right?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Did
Yeah.
you guys get that new monitor? Because I didn't get it. No? You guys got that?
I
It was on the line. I think it's on
Yeah,
there. It's
okay,
on
sure,
there.
sure.
Yeah, we couldn't really hear it on our side, but
No worries.
that's just our technical difficulties here. We're holding everything together barely.
Sure.
We're hobos
But-
with mics.
Yeah, right.
Where did this song come from? It's like, so I was reading through there, and it's basically it's like a remake. Is
Yeah.
that what I read?
Well, it's a retrack.
Retrack.
Now, Famine is one of the old Shotgun anthems. So there's a few of them that when I had come in, it was kicking out new material and things like that. We were like, okay, well, what's the best way to move forward as far as like, because the direction we were going was significantly heavier than where the band had been. And so, especially since my vocal style contrasts with Tim's pretty drastically, so we wanted to find a way to like kind of merge the new and the old, and so we thought a really good way to do that was to take kind of some of the old Shotgun anthems and retract them with some different expanded lyrics and things like that. So Bury Me, Famine, and there's one or two others that were basically, you'll hear them at every Shotgun show. So we decided to retrack it because we had this really great opportunity working with Tyler Pilot out of Red Dot Recording in Bismarck. That's where we tracked the whole thing.
Interesting. Okay.
And so we tracked the whole album, by the way. So the whole album was tracked out there. And so we decided to take 2 or 3 Shotgun anthems and basically retract them, redo them, put them on the album with all the rest of the originals and the new stuff moving forward. So we basically, what fit the best as far as where we were going, and they were really good to use as singles, and and things like that to kind of like something familiar for old fans to hear, especially with such an updated sound. So, and they really hadn't had a chance to be tracked. I say this as politely as I can. They really hadn't had a chance to be tracked properly.
And it sounds great.
And right,
it really
and
does.
Tyler nailed it, man. I mean, he knocked it completely out of the park. And what we wanted, like I said, we're old school dudes, man. So, God, I apologize. But we're old school dudes, and one of the things we didn't want moving forward on the album, we feel like a lot of modern metal albums are really cold and can be lifeless. We feel like bands can kind of choke the life out of them because they're too worried about being so sonically perfect, and we didn't want that. We don't feel like that really fit the bill for what we do with Shotgun. And we had a lot of fans that when we talked about we were going to do an album, fans were like, your live show, bring that to the album because your live show is great. And so we're like, well, the way to do that then is to just go really old school with it and track this thing live. And so the instruments you hear all the way throughout the album, like 90% of that is all done together live. All those dudes are playing in the studio together.
Wow.
And so I mean, there's a little
takes
stuff.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and there's little stuff too. Like solos are done post, and obviously my vocals are done post and stuff too. And every once in a while, there's like, oh, I can do that fill a little cleaner or something, so you might punch in. But like I said, like 85 to 90% of what you're hearing instrument-wise is all fucking hit the hi-hat and away we go. You know what I mean? Which is exhausting because one person fucks up halfway through, everybody's got to start all the way over again. And you got to, of course, when you do recording weekends, you have to bring the whole trailer. You got to bring everybody's rig. Everybody's got to bring their stuff. So like roadie's got to come with. You know what I mean? So it was a whole thing. But we feel like it services the album, and it there's an old school warmth. Tyler's running a lot of things through analog there as well. So
nice.
We wanted it to feel like you're in the room listening to us play, so the easiest way to do that is for us to just play it. You know what I mean? So
it all makes sense, doesn't it, everyone?
Right. And so even for vocals, we talked about too, is that it's like, yeah, I don't want a ton of processed stuff, so it was just my stage mic. That's what I was using, and there's not other than proper compression and things like that. It's all right from the gut, man. And so we wanted that's the way albums used to be done. You know what I mean? Like 80s and 90s. And Mickey D was on with Rob Flynn on Rob Flynn's podcast. Rob Flynn from Machine Head.
Yep.
I'm a huge Machine Head fan, so I listen to a lot of what Rob does. So we had Mickey D in from Motorhead, the old Motorhead drummer. And he's playing with the Scorpions now. And he was talking about for their new album that basically he's like, well, we go in and we play everything together. That was the way we did the Motorhead albums and stuff like that. And he's like, you do little bits, where you like maybe redo a fill or something, but he's like, that's the way it used to be done before all these days when everybody started fucking cheating. What Mickey said, So, and Damien, started fucking cheating, and so it's like, it might sound great, but you can't reproduce it live kind of thing. And so Damien had said, when we first started kicking around the idea of okay, we have these songs, what are we going to do with them, time to do a record. And we were done with the EP thing. And like I said, Shotgun's been a band for a while, and I, as an aside, I knew that they had fans. I didn't know that they had like fans. So like when I had joined, people were like, they knew the words of these songs. And so when it came time to like retrack old songs too, like I was very careful about how I approached it, even like with lyrical additions and things like that, is that it was like I wanted to not piss these people off, but at the same time though, you want to be true to what you offer and everything else. And the band believed in the vision that that I had lyrically as well, for contributions that I wanted to have and things that we tweaked. And there's little things for like song structure that we tweak as well. So like the breakdown even for Famine, it's a little different now than it was even on the old recording. You know what I mean? Now we have two guitarists, you know what I mean? So it's like the way that thing progresses, there's little tweaks even in Bury Me. So it's not just straight retracking. The songs have been tweaked in little places and stuff too. So it's a new listening experience as well. But
freshening it up.
Yep. And so staying true, but basically giving it a new paint job, you know, and putting a little bit more horsepower under the hood. And so when
Everything a growing boy needs.
Yep, exactly. Put air in your chest. And so when came time to do a record, you know, we were like, well, it's been a band since 2012, and they've released stuff, and everybody aside from Gorgatron that I'm aware of is, because I know Gorgatron just released the full length. As far as like the area, you know, as far as I'm aware in the area, Gorgatron released the full length, and other than that, everybody's kind of doing the 4 or 5 track thing, which is great. But we're doing shows like we're playing, you know, an hour to 90 minutes. I mean, we've got tons of originals, so we're like, what are we sitting on all these songs for? You know, like track them all, you know, track them all, put them on the album, and let's do it. And so, oh man, I'm sorry. Basically, like, put our money where our mouth is kind of thing. And so when we first started kicking that idea around, Damien stopped everyone in rehearsal. He's like, okay, we're not doing anything on this album that we can't do live. So if we're tracking it this way, it will be played this way, basically. So, like, when Matt and Jody come in, the things that we changed, we're like, okay, well, we're not going to just spend 5 hours in the studio getting this down, and that's just the way that it is. No. Like, we're going to be playing these the way that they're tracked. There's maybe, I think, there might be 1 or 2 sections on the entire album where there's layered guitars, where we went back in and added layers, and that's only because the section basically cried for it. And it's like at the very end of the album.
Need a little more beef.
Yeah, I cried for it at the very end of the album. And so it was like one section, and that was it. Other than that, it was just straight to the dome, man. You know, and so got 5 sweaty dudes all sitting in the same room.
Welcome to recording.
Yep. And so Jody played like the first 2 songs, like, shirt's coming off, boys. That's the way this is going. So, and then like, they'd track all day, and then I'd come back at night, and I'd spend, you know, 4 or 5 hours basically laying vocals over what they tracked that day. And so it was done probably inside of maybe 6 to 7 days total, I think. So there was probably 3.
That's a healthy chunk, yeah.
3 or 4 band weekends where we were all over there doing all that. So, so yeah, and Tyler, from the very start, when I told him that we wanted to track it live, I was like, I realized that is a headache. And he's like, yeah. He's like, it can be. One of the biggest things is, you know, is like bands that want to do it that way generally think that they're super, super tight, and they're generally not tight enough. And you know,
that's exactly what I would have thought.
Yeah, it has a lot of issues. And he's like, but as long as we can meet a certain level of tightness, you know what I mean, it can be done, and it can be really cool. And we're like, well, we believe in it, and we'll give it a shot, you know what I mean. And it's our money that we're wasting if we fuck it up, you know what I mean.
Very true.
So he was like, okay, cool, let's do it. And so we started tracking some stuff, and we started hearing the first stuff back, and not only were we super stoked on it, just the warmth and the heat, you know. I mean, like, I think that's one of the biggest differences for this album versus like so much modern metal production is everything in metal is so fucking cold.
Yeah.
And we didn't want that, and so we wanted hot guitar tone. Damien and Matt are big PV guys, so they're running Invectives, you know what I mean. So there's like $2,200 amps or whatever else, and so it's 120 watts vacuum tube, that old school tube power, you know. And so those things just start roaring, you know what I mean. Which is one of the biggest parts of our live show, is just how hot those tubes get. You get a growl in it that's just something else. So we wanted to capture that. And and obviously Jody's snare, he beats that thing like a rented mule, like it owes him money, you know what I mean. So it's like, so we wanted to just capture that heat more than anything else. And hearing it all back, I think, you know, we were just ecstatic about it. And so we just decided to kind of live in a vision, not live in circumstances, and just kind of make a game plan and stick to it. And as far as the album goes, there's the 2 singles we released.
Has the album been released yet? I didn't see anything on that.
It has not.
Okay.
And there's a reason for that. Originally, album release day was April 2nd, which has come and gone. And there was supposed to be a third single that was released, which we did not release. And there's a reason for that. We can't say too much about it yet.
Okay. Please slip out and tell us.
Legally.
I gotcha.
Legally, we can't say anything about it.
Legalese.
But the album is done. It's completely finished. Top to bottom, everything is completely done. It will be released this year.
Okay. So there is a timeline for the next few months.
And there is a release date that we haven't shared yet either. So it will be released this year. This isn't one of those things where we're stringing everybody along. It will be released this year. But it's like in the next month we'll be able to kind of like open the curtains. But we're working with somebody, trying to be as vague as I can possibly be. We're working with somebody to release it internationally, whole 9 yards. So
cool.
So like I said, it will be postponed, but there is a very good reason for it. So, that we're really excited about. That could mean, that means a lot of potentially very, very exciting things for the band that we're really, really excited about. So
cool. So when are the next few shows coming up? And I just heard that you just played your first one after all this COVID funness out west. Yep. Where was that at?
That was at Average Joe's in Partial, which was interesting because we had a run through there. We had a run through there last year. We were supposed to go Minot, Partial, Bismarck, Rapid City. And this was like a week of when the COVID shutdown started.
Oh.
And so week of tour dates just start dropping and tours are getting canceled. And we're like, we're going to hold out as long as we can, And as long as the venue doesn't tell us it's canceled, we're going to show up. Because that's kind of the way that we do things too. When we commit, like I said, we're old school dudes. And when we give our word to do something, that's what we're going to do. So until we're told that the show is not going by somebody with an adultier adult than us, until somebody tells us that, to park the trailer, we're going to show up where we're scheduled to be. So we held out. We didn't cancel anything. And then it was like Minot got canceled. And we were like, okay, so let's try to reschedule it so that way we can fill the date. And we booked, and then Bismarck dropped. And then we had booked 3 different venues, and they all got canceled inside of like the same 2 or 3 days. And so Average Joe's, and Little Partial, and that's where I used to live out there, like when I was out west. And that was the last show that was still hanging on. And he's like, well, you guys can come out here and play. I'm not closing. And then it was like the day we were supposed to leave. He's like, yeah, the town told me. They pulled the plug that said, like, town says you can't have anybody in. So he's like, so an adultier adult than him told him that he couldn't have a show. So
let's try.
So when things were starting to open up now, basically it was good though because everything works out for a reason, right? And what does every band wish they had? A solid year to like put things in place when we're not getting behind because nobody's doing shows. So we're not feeling pressure to go out and do shows, so we can actually just literally write this album, record it with no pressure, and kind of put our ducks in a row and do this properly, which is what we wanted from the very start. And so we're not playing catch up, you know what I mean? So So we had this whole year to do the album, and then everything's done, and there's a few venues that were like, wow, we've heard some of the new singles, and we really dig it, and we had some airplay over in the cities and stuff when Famine was released and things like that. So we're like, oh, well, you ought to think about coming over here for your first show and coming out here. And we're like, you know what? We got some unfinished business at Joe's. And every band we talked to, man, top to bottom, we talked to some national acts and stuff that like some of us are like friends with, and not just Jay, but a few other bands too. They're like, dude, you got to go out there, man. This place is nuts. And I'm like, Joe's in Partial? There's a little hole in the walls. It's kind of like 400 people. Like, you kidding me? And everybody's like, yeah, front to back, it's packed. And they just go nuts. And we had heard this even before COVID. And we were like, sure, we'll show up. You know what I mean? And so we were like, okay, well, let's do this, And we go out to Joe's. And the old place, which was a little tiny place, that place is closed now. There's a great big building next to it. It's a new one. It's this whole big hall, you know what I mean? Probably size of, oh man, probably about half. You remember the old venue, the Hub?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, here in town. It's probably about half that size. So
Okay.
So it's pretty big, and so it's like, oh shit, like remember Marshall? It's like this great big pool and darts, and the bar's way across the other side of the venue. And there's a stage and lights and everything else is all set up. It's like
In this place with only 400 people.
yeah,
living
it's
in it.
like what the hell? And as
Nice.
we start playing, people start filling in and they're going nuts front to back, and I just like, well, we got love for you in our heart, man. We'll be every time we're out this way, we'll come out. And Joe's, I guess that was their soft opening. He's gonna be doing a great big grand opening later this summer. He's like, I'll have you guys back. It's like, we'll show up, man.
That's awesome.
Great. So we've played out west a few times too. The shows are always nuts. I don't know if it's that they're so far out there that like any band that they get, they just go nuts over. Like,
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe they're
But-
starved. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's always great for us. And so we played out there. It was great, and we're booking some stuff as much as we can regionally.
You'll be at the aquarium here in a couple weeks.
Yep, and the aquarium here in a couple weeks here in June, and then there's some other stuff that I don't have any dates on that aren't hard yet, but they're getting scheduled. So
Cool.
They'll be like,
Are they Friday or Saturday?
you know, I believe. Well, I guess the aquarium can get pissed off at me if they want. I mean, it's but June 18th is the date for that one for the aquarium.
Okay.
I believe that's a Friday. I'm not sure though, but
We might be able to go.
We'll have to go check that out.
Sure.
Most definitely.
yeah, and
Most
by
def-
then for sure all the news will be out and everything as far as all that goes. But and then later this year, we're going to be working a lot with Jay as well, and we're going to be booking some stuff out. You know, so this fall we're going to be heading out. That was the plan last year too. 20, 30 shows. You know, heading out like towards Denver and out towards Butte and Montana and out towards Idaho and Kansas City. We've got some stuff lined up. We're going down as soon as Kansas City opens up.
Moving
We've
out.
got
Nice.
some stuff going on down there, and then so yeah, all that's getting rescheduled. All that's going to happen, and so as soon as I've got dates, you guys will all have dates. You know
Let
what I mean?
us
So,
know. We'll definitely be pushing them out there for everybody.
hell yeah.
But we almost forgot. We have a little destruction we got to show you today. Now, this is one of my more favorite ones. Now, Grant, we have some more stuff that's coming up thanks to the